All right, so in this skill builder, we are going to go over a couple different exercises to help us practice shading just with pencil. You can do this in your sketchbooks if you're here in person with us. If you're at home and you just have any sort of piece of paper, that will work as well, and just any pencil you have. A normal pencil will work a lot better than a mechanical pencil, but you'll have to just work with whatever you have. So our first thing we're gonna do, especially on the sketchbooks, is I'm gonna kind of just label my sketchbook page as a shading. Let's see if that's in focus. There we go. Shading skill builder. So when you go back to look at it and you want to see what skills you were learning, at least you kind of have an idea of what each one was. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of make some boxes. So I'm going to make the whole shape of where the boxes are going to be first. Just going to be kind of a really long rectangle. This does not need to be perfect. That's why I'm not using a ruler. It's just practice. If you want to do this, something that has a lot more straighter lines, of course, use a ruler, but for this will be fine. And then you're going to split this up into quite a few different boxes. I would say between 6 and 10, maybe. 6 is obviously going to be a little easier, and the more you do, you're going to be challenging yourself a little bit more. So I'm just gonna split them up and kind of just see how many I end up with. All right, looks like I ended up with 7. This one's a tad big. Not that it really matters, but there you go. So I've got 7, so I'm gonna label them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And what we're gonna do is have 1 be our lightest color, so it might kind of help to label that for you. And 7 be our darkest color. So if you have 9 or 10, you're gonna have quite a few different grays in between your white and your darkest color you can make. So I usually start with my darkest. Your lightest will usually stay white. So I start with my darkest and really just start to fill that in as dark as I can with my pencil. It might take a couple layers, especially if you don't wanna break your pencil right away. I wouldn't worry about getting like all the way to the corners. If you want to and you really want it to look clean, go ahead, but for time's sake, it doesn't really need to fill in the square perfectly. But I can tell that can still go a lot darker, so I'm going to take another run through it and make it even darker, maybe even one more. The darker this gets, the easier it's going to be for you to make different grays. So we'll start with that as my darkest for now. And then I'm going to come down to 6, and I'm going to try to make this slightly darker than my 7. It's still a little too light, so we'll do one more run through that one. We'll try that for now, and then I'll go to my 5. And you notice how, as I'm trying to get lighter colors, I'm not holding my pencil up and down like this. That's gonna make it really hard to press lightly, but instead I'm holding it on the side and just making sure my pencil is pretty well sharpened so that I can get some good value just with the side of my pencil. And that way I have a little bit more control, and I'm almost holding it kind of like this instead of like this. If I hold it like this, I feel like I have more control on having some lighter pressure. So now I'm going to move to 4 and try to get even lighter. And now to 3, even lighter than that. And my 2. That one you're going to be almost barely touching the paper. And then I kind of look back and I go, all right, so my 2 and 3 are still pretty close to each other. I think if that line was there, I wouldn't really even notice that they're supposed to be 2 different colors. So I'm going to come back over my 3 and give it one more run through to make it a little darker. And then I'm going to have to do the same thing with my 4, because now these 2 are the same. just kind of go one shade up with everything to kind of help get that value scale to go from lightest to darkest. I'll kind of draw that line back in so you can see those. But something like that where you can see your darkest and then slightly getting lighter all the way until white. And that is your value scale. So the next thing we want to try to practice is a gradation scale. So you're going to do pretty much the same thing. This one can be a little bit thinner like this maybe, so you don't have to color in so much. And you are going to want to go from the lightest over here to the darkest over here again, but instead of having them being separate squares, you're going to try to get it to be one fluent like motion, kind of from darkest to lightest. So again, I'm going to find it easiest to start with my dark and really try to get that far side as dark as you can so that you can really have a lot of room to work with from darkest to lightest. And then what I'm going to do is just slowly start lightening up the pressure gradually instead of box by box. So I'm going to start here at my darkest, and then I'm going to slowly take off a little bit of pressure off of my pencil. And as you can see, I'm slowly getting lighter and lighter as I go, and trying to make those transitions pretty smooth until I'm barely touching my paper again. And then I can look back and I see, I can kind of match it up to here and see that I probably need a little bit more variation in my darkness over here before I get light. So I'm going to start back at that dark again and make sure I'm really getting that darkest color I can get with my pencil. And then slowly let off some of that pressure. And now I feel like that kind of transitions a little smoother. And then a little trick, if you take one of these, they are called blending stumps. I have enough of these for everyone to practice with one if you'd like. And what you're gonna do, all it is kind of just wrapped up paper, but it's really gonna help you get some smoother transitions between your shading. So all you're gonna do is kind of go right back over your pencil marks with this, and as you see, it's kind of slowly getting rid of all those marks and making it look even smoother of a transition. So now we kind of have some practice with shading going from our darkest to our lightest. And this one is called your gradation scale. So it might help you to label these so you know that this one's a value scale and this one's a gradation scale.